The rain poured in torrents against the cracked asphalt, thunder groaning above as Daniel stood frozen at the crossroads, his trembling hands gripping the old leather phone. His chest rose and fell with sharp, uneven breaths, each one carrying the weight of an unspoken past. Daniel said, "Why tonight? Why now, when everything I buried clawed its way back?" The phone buzzed again, the vibration digging into his palm, demanding his answer. Lightning split the night sky, and the voice on the line echoed like a judgment. "If you don't choose, your child dies." His throat tightened, every muscle locked, the air thick with dread. Maria's laughter from years ago haunted his ears, and his knees buckled under memories of failure. Daniel whispered, "No more blood, not again." His face glistened with rain, a blend of tears and fear, eyes wide at the impossible ultimatum. He felt the city press down, its neon lights flickering like dying stars, mocking his hesitation. In that moment, Daniel realized the choice before him was not just survival, it was redemption or damnation. Daniel stumbled into the flickering light of the diner, soaked to the bone, heart pounding with each echo of the ultimatum. He said, "I can't outrun it, not this time." Inside, the stale air reeked of coffee and regret. A lone figure sat at the counter, Ward, 55 years old, graying hair, weary eyes. He raised his glass with a smirk. "You've been here before, Daniel, always thinking you can choose without consequence." Daniel's lips trembled as he replied, "You don't know what it costs." Edward's gaze cut sharp, his tone drenched in cynicism. "I know more than you think. Choices carve scars and yours are deep." Daniel shivered, rain dripping from his coat as thunder rattled the glass windows, reminding him that time was slipping away. His hand tightened around the phone, the words still burning into him. He thought of Maria, of his child, of redemption, and every option felt like a blade pressed to his throat. Edward leaned back, swirling his drink with tired fingers, eyes never leaving Daniel. Edward said, "Redemption is a myth sold to the desperate." Daniel's face twisted, the weight of memory choking him. "Then why do I still hear her laughter?" he whispered, voice cracking. Edward chuckled, hollow and bitter. "Because guilt is a ghost that feeds on the living." Daniel slammed his hand on the counter, coffee cups rattling, his voice breaking through. "I won't let him take my child." Edward's smirk faltered, his voice lowering into a warning. "The world doesn't bargain, Daniel, it devours." Outside, lightning illuminated the street, the storm pressing harder against the glass. Daniel's jaw locked, his heartbeat echoing the clock above, ticking away the seconds of his torment. "Oh, Hunts." Daniel's breathing grew ragged, and his voice cracked as he said, "Every choice I made left ashes behind. But this one decides everything." Edward leaned in, his eyes sharp, "Or maybe it decides nothing. You're just another man chasing ghosts." The phone buzzed again, loud, merciless, vibrating against the counter like a ticking bomb. Daniel stared at it, his hands trembling. He whispered, "If I answer, I condemn one. If I don't, I lose both." Edward's jaw tightened as silence stretched between them. The storm outside roared as though the city itself demanded his choice. Daniel pressed his palms against the table, every muscle shaking under the weight of the impossible. Edward's voice cut like a knife. "Answer it, Daniel, or watch the world tear itself apart." Daniel's lips quivered, eyes burning as memories of Mariah's smile and his child's innocent face bled together in torment. His chest heaved, sweat mixing with rain on his brow. He whispered, "Redemption comes with a price." The phone rang again, sharp and merciless, and Daniel's trembling hand hovered just above it. His choice was no longer about survival. It was about the man he would become when the storm ended. Daniel sat slumped in the corner booth, rain dripping from his coat onto the cracked vinyl seat, every drop echoing like judgment. He pressed his palms against his face, his breath hot and ragged, the words from the phone still drilling into his skull. He said, "Why do they make me choose again? Why won't the past stay buried?" Edward leaned back at the counter, his reflection in the neon-stained window twisted with cynicism. Edward said, "Because ghosts never leave, Daniel. They wait for you in silence." Daniel lifted his head, eyes bloodshot, as thunder rolled across the horizon like war drums. He whispered, "I hear her voice in every storm, and it breaks me." Edward smirked, his voice low and sharp. "Good, it means you still bleed." The clock above ticked louder than the rain, each second cutting into Daniel's resolve. His hand shook as he traced the outline of his child's photo in his wallet, the edges worn and stained by years of regret. He knew he could not run anymore. Daniel's trembling fingers slid the photograph of his child across the table, the edges curling, the image blurred by years of handling. His voice cracked. "Every wrong step leads back to this. His face, his innocence, my sin." Edward swirled his drink, watching Daniel with narrowed eyes. Edward said, "You carry redemption like a curse, Daniel. But curses don't set you free, they chain you." Daniel slammed the photo against the table, his jaw tight. "Then why does it still hurt? Why do I feel like I can save him even now?" Edward sighed, his tone heavy. "Because hope is cruel. It makes men walk through fire thinking they can come out unburned." The storm outside hammered the glass, lightning staining the diner red and white. Daniel whispered, "If redemption burns me alive, then maybe I deserve it." His words trembled like a confession carved from his chest. The diner door creaked open with a gust of storm wind, scattering napkins across the floor. A young woman entered, her coat clutched tight, eyes sharp with determination. Sarah, 29-year-old female, blonde hair tied back, stood tall, though her hands trembled. She spotted Daniel and crossed the room quickly, ignoring Edward's stare. Sarah said, "You're running out of time, Daniel. I know what they want." Daniel froze, his throat dry, eyes locked on her with disbelief. "How do you know?" he whispered, his voice heavy. Sarah sat across from him, her tone unflinching. "Because I've seen the files, the corruption, the blood on their hands. They're using your guilt to break you." Edward laughed bitterly, raising his glass. Another idealist ready to be crushed. Sarah's glare burned into him. "At least I still believe the truth matters." Daniel's chest tightened, torn between cynicism and the fragile flame of hope Sarah ignited. Sarah leaned closer, her voice sharp but steady. "They'll force you to choose, Daniel, but the choice was poison from the start." Daniel's fingers clenched around the photo, his knuckles white. He said, "If I choose wrong, he dies. If I choose nothing, they both die." Sarah's gaze softened for a moment, her tone quieter. "Redemption doesn't come from them, it comes from you. Stop letting them hold the noose." Edward exhaled bitter smoke from a cigarette, shaking his head. "Naive. The world eats men like you alive, Sarah." She fired back, "Better to burn than to rot." Daniel's voice broke as he whispered, "I'm afraid of the fire." Sarah's eyes met his with conviction. "Then let it burn away what you're not. What's left, that's who you are." The storm outside roared louder, lightning cracking the sky as the diner shook with its fury. Daniel said, "Every road ends in ruin. I've seen it. I've lived it." Sarah's hand reached across the table, firm and unwavering. She said, "Not every road. This one can end with truth, even if it costs us everything." Daniel's chest ached as he stared at her hand, the weight of years pressing down on him. Edward muttered, "Truth is a grave, not a path." Daniel's voice rose, raw and trembling. "Then I'll dig with my bare hands if I must." His eyes blazed with a mixture of fear and defiance, rain still dripping from his soaked hair. Sarah whispered, "Then maybe you're finally ready." The phone buzzed again, vibrating like a heartbeat, demanding its answer. The storm outside had not lessened. If anything, it had grown hungrier, pounding the diner windows as if it wanted in. Daniel stared at the buzzing phone again, his face pale, trembling as he said, "Every second is another nail in my coffin." Sarah leaned forward, her voice cutting sharp against the storm. "Then stop letting them write your story." Edward swirled his drink, his laugh hollow. "Naive words for a cruel world. Truth gets you buried, Daniel." Daniel's hand clenched around the photo of his child, eyes red with desperation. He whispered, "If I let them die, I'm nothing. If I fight, I may still lose everything." Edward sighed, lifting his glass with a smirk. You've already lost. The only question is how much further you fall. Sarah's eyes burned with resolve as she whispered, "Then fall fighting." Daniel pressed his forehead against the table, the clock ticking louder, each second stealing his courage. The diner door swung open again, and a tall man in a dark overcoat entered, shaking the rain from his shoulders. His presence silenced the room. Victor, 42-year-old male, sharp features, slicked back hair, eyes cold with authority, stepped closer. He said, "Time is bleeding away, Daniel. You know what must be done." Daniel stiffened, his voice shaking. "Why drag me back into this, Victor? Haven't I paid enough?" Victor smirked, resting gloved hands on the booth's edge. "Payment is never enough when debt is carved in blood." Sarah stood, eyes blazing. "You're manipulating him. This isn't a choice, it's blackmail." Victor's gaze snapped to her, dismissive. "Idealists die quickest. All any word, I'll doesn't." Daniel's voice cracked as he whispered, "Then maybe I'll die with her belief, rather than live with your lies." The storm outside howled, rattling the diner's neon sign like a warning. Victor leaned closer, his voice low, almost whispering. "The boy lives only if you choose wisely, Daniel. Choose wrong, and you bury 2 more ghosts beside Maria." Daniel's eyes widened, grief stabbing deep. He whispered, "Leave her out of this." Victor smiled thinly. "She never left, Daniel. Her shadow is the chain I pull." Sarah slammed her fist on the table, anger breaking through her voice. "You can't let him win. This is control, not fate." Edward chuckled bitterly, sipping his drink. "Control, fate. It all tastes the same in the end." Daniel's breathing grew heavier, his hand trembling as he pointed at Victor. "Every word you speak poisons me, but I won't let you turn me into you." Victor's eyes narrowed, cold and steady. "You're already halfway there." The storm cracked lightning across the sky, flooding the diner in white light for a fleeting second. Daniel pushed himself to his feet, fists trembling, voice cracking. "I won't be your pawn anymore." Victor smiled, calm as the storm raged. "You already are, Daniel. You're just deciding how long you'll last." Sarah's voice trembled with urgency. "Listen to me. You can fight this. They can't control what you believe." Edward exhaled smoke, eyes hollow. "Belief won't save him, girl. Only sacrifice will." Daniel's voice broke. "If saving him means losing myself, then maybe that's the price." Victor's expression darkened, his tone sharp. "The price is higher than you think." The storm's thunder exploded, shaking the walls, making the neon sign sputter violently. Daniel's hands shook as he whispered, "Then I'll pay it." Silence followed, as every gaze fixed on him. The phone buzzed again, louder, vibrating across the table until it nearly fell. Daniel's chest heaved, every muscle caught between breaking and standing firm. He said, "This ends tonight." Victor leaned back, satisfied. "Then answer, Daniel. Let's see if redemption is worth the ashes." Sarah placed her hand on Daniel's arm, her voice steady. "You're more than their chains." Edward muttered, staring into his glass. "Chains are all that hold the world together." Daniel lifted the phone with shaking hands, staring at its glowing screen. His reflection stared back, haunted, broken, yet filled with a fragile spark. He whispered, "I'll decide who I become, not you." Victor's eyes narrowed, Sarah's eyes burned, Edward's eyes dimmed. The storm outside reached its peak, lightning shattering the sky as the diner lights flickered. The diner lights flickered violently, as if the storm itself demanded confession. Daniel gripped the phone tighter, his face pale with dread. Victor leaned closer, his tone sharp and calculated. Victor said, "You still don't see, do you? The one who betrayed you, the one who led Maria into the fire, it wasn't me." Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs as his breath stuttered. "You're lying." Victor's smirk carried no hesitation. "Ask Edward, he was there when the deal was made." Edward froze, his hand trembling around the glass. Daniel's voice cracked with rage. "Tell me it isn't true." Edward's gaze dropped, shame flooding his tired eyes. "I thought it would save you both. I thought compromise was mercy. The storm rattled the windows, thunder booming like judgment. Daniel staggered back, his chest heaving, as betrayal cut deeper than the storm ever could. Daniel slammed the phone on the table, his voice breaking through the storm's roar. You sold her to them, Edward. You let her die. Edward's hand shook, his eyes wet as he whispered, I thought I was saving you. I couldn't save her. Sarah's voice pierced the tension, sharp and trembling. You betrayed everything you claimed to believe in. Edward turned toward her, his face lined with regret. You think truth saves, truth kills. I chose survival. Daniel's chest heaved, tears mixing with rain and sweat. Your survival was her death. Victor leaned back, smug, watching the chaos he had ignited. Now you see the world for what it is, Daniel. No heroes, no redemption. Only choices that rot. Lightning burst outside, illuminating Daniel's furious face, the storm and betrayal now inseparable. Edward's shoulders slumped as he finally admitted, I signed the paper. Daniel, I made the deal. They promised it would protect your family. Daniel's voice shook as he whispered, You murdered her with your pen. Edward's eyes glistened with regret. I was weak. I thought compromise was mercy. Sarah slammed her hand on the table. Compromise at the cost of blood isn't mercy, it's betrayal. Victor chuckled, his voice like a knife. And still you sit here debating morality while your boy waits for a choice that may never come. Daniel's chest burned with rage, his vision blurring with grief. He said, I've been haunted by shadows, but tonight, I see them clearly. Lightning cut across the sky, the diner quaking with its fury, the truth revealed like a scar carved into their souls. Daniel's fists trembled as he leaned over the table, his voice raw. All this time I blamed myself, but it was you, Edward. You condemned her. Edward's voice cracked. I condemned myself too. Every night since. Sarah's eyes blazed as she said, Your guilt doesn't wash away the blood. Victor leaned in, his tone venomous. This is the truth, Daniel. Your allies are your enemies. The ones closest always cut deepest. Daniel's hand hovered over the phone, his choice heavier than ever. He whispered, If I answer, I condemn one. If I don't, I condemn us all. The clock above ticked louder, every second mocking his hesitation. The storm outside shrieked through the neon sign, shattering part of the glass, scattering sparks across the diner. Daniel's face hardened, betrayal now carved into his very being. Daniel's voice finally cut through the storm, sharp and broken. Maria's blood stains both of us, Edward, but the choice tonight will stain only me. Edward's face collapsed under the weight of shame. Sarah leaned in, her eyes fierce. Then choose truth, Daniel. Don't let betrayal decide your path. Victor smirked, his tone dripping with mockery. Truth won't save him. Only power will. Daniel lifted the phone, his hand shaking but steadying as he looked at them all. He whispered, No more lies, no more ghosts. Tonight I decide. The storm screamed, lightning flooding the diner in white light, shadows of betrayal stretching across the walls like chains. For the first time, Daniel's eyes were no longer haunted by doubt, but sharpened by the fire of resolve. The diner seemed smaller now, the storm pounding harder, rattling the walls as though it wanted to crush them. Daniel stood in the center of the booth, drenched phone in hand, his chest heaving. He said, Every path leads to blood, but tonight I will choose who bleeds. Sarah rose beside him, her voice fierce yet desperate. Don't let them make that decision for you, Daniel. Take it back. Edward slumped lower, guilt dripping from every word as he whispered, I tried to choose once and it damned us all. Victor's smirk widened, his voice sharp as a blade. And now the stage is yours. Will you be a savior or a butcher? Daniel's fingers trembled against the phone, lightning flashing across his face, his eyes wild but burning. I'll decide, he said, and I'll live with the ashes. The storm roared louder as if sealing the moment. Daniel's hand hovered over the call button, his face a battlefield of torment and fire. He whispered, If I press it, one life ends. If I don't, both are lost. Sarah reached for him, her voice steady. Redemption isn't bought with their rules, it's claimed with your own. Edward's face twisted in agony, his tone low. Don't let my sin decide yours. Break the chain, Daniel. Victor leaned closer, his cold eyes narrowing. There's no chain, only survival. Sacrifice the boy, and live. Daniel's body shook, tears burning down his face as he screamed, "He's my son!" Lightning tore the sky, glass rattling as silence fell in the wake of his words. Every eye in the room was locked on him. Daniel collapsed into the booth, pressing the phone against his forehead, sweat and rain dripping. He whispered, "If I choose him, I destroy myself. If I choose me, I destroy him." Sarah gripped his hand tightly, her voice trembling with conviction. "Destroy neither. Destroy their power over you." Victor's laugh cut like broken glass. "Fools, power is all there is." Edward muttered through cracked lips, "Power without conscience is a graveyard." Daniel raised his head slowly, eyes narrowing, a spark igniting within. "Then I'll bury power itself." The storm outside surged as if answering his vow, thunder shaking the walls like a final drumbeat. Daniel rose suddenly, slamming the phone onto the counter, his voice a roar. "No more chains, no more ghosts. If redemption burns me alive, then I'll burn." Sarah gasped but steadied herself, nodding with fire in her eyes. "Then burn for truth, Daniel." Edward buried his face in his hands, his words muffled. "Truth will bury us all." Victor sneered, clapping slowly, mockingly. Finally, a man ready to play. Daniel's chest heaved, his shoulders squared. He said not to play, to end the game. The storm's lightning shattered across the sky, flooding the diner with violent white light as his decision weighed like thunder. The phone rang again, its shrill tone cutting through the storm's roar. Daniel lifted it, no longer trembling, his eyes hardened. He whispered, "No more fear." Victor's smile faltered, his voice sharp. "If you defy us, your son dies tonight." Daniel's hand clenched, his voice steady. "Then tonight, you die with your lies." Sarah's eyes widened, her voice a whisper of awe. "He's choosing truth." Edward lifted his face, tears streaking, whispering, "God, forgive me, he's breaking the chain." Lightning burst through shattered neon, Daniel's face glowing with defiance. For the first time, his voice carried no tremor. "I will carry the ashes, but they'll be mine, not yours." Silence fell, storm raging beyond, as his choice shattered every bond of fear. The diner had fallen into a suffocating silence, the storm outside now a steady roar instead of a scream. Daniel lowered the phone slowly, its glow dimming as if the fight inside him had drained it. He whispered, "It's done." Sarah's breath caught, her eyes searching his face for the man he had become. "What did you say to them?" she asked. Daniel's shoulders slumped, his eyes heavy with the weight of his choice. "I told them no more chains." Edward sat hunched, his trembling hands covering his face as his voice cracked. "Then you've condemned us all." Victor's smirk had vanished, his jaw tight, his cold authority finally fractured. "You don't walk away from us, Daniel. No one does." Daniel's chest heaved, his tone raw. "Then, I'll carry the cost alone." The storm rattled the diner windows again, but Daniel's voice was steady now, no longer trembling. Daniel sank into the booth, his hands shaking, but his eyes finally steady. He said, "I chose truth, not survival." Sarah's gaze softened, her voice a whisper. "Then maybe that's redemption." Edward looked up, his eyes wet, shame spilling into every syllable. "Redemption is for men stronger than me." Victor rose slowly, coat dripping, his voice sharp. "Redemption is a lie. You chose rebellion. And rebellion only ends in graves." Daniel met his stare, fire burning in his tired eyes. "Then let it end there. At least it ends free." Lightning cracked outside, casting fleeting white light across the diner's broken neon, as though the storm itself bowed to his choice. Edward's voice cracked as he whispered, "Every choice I made was to protect you, Daniel, but it always destroyed more." Daniel's jaw tightened, his voice quieter now. then maybe protection is just another word for fear. Sarah's hand touched Daniel's arm gently. And fear doesn't lead to truth. You proved that tonight. Edward collapsed against the counter, tears falling. I see Maria's face in every choice I made wrong. Forgiveness won't come for me. Daniel turned his gaze toward him, no longer burning with rage, but with weary understanding. Then carry your ashes, Edward, the way I'll carry mine. The storm outside eased, the thunder now distant as if even the sky had grown weary of rage. Victor's voice cut the silence, low and venomous. You think they'll spare you because of truth? You've signed your own death warrant. Daniel's head turned toward him, his eyes no longer trembling. Then let death find me. I'll meet it on my terms. Sarah rose, her body shaking, but her voice strong. And if death comes, we'll face it together. Edward muttered through broken sobs. I won't face it. I don't deserve to. Victor's sneer twisted into something darker. Then perhaps the boy pays for your defiance. Daniel slammed his fist on the table, eyes blazing. Touch him, and I'll burn the world to ash. The storm groaned above, its final rumble echoing like a vow. The storm outside softened into rain, steady but calmer, as if exhausted. Daniel stood tall, phone no longer buzzing, silence heavier than thunder. He whispered, "The choice is made. The ashes are mine." Sarah's eyes glistened, her voice soft. And maybe in those ashes lies freedom. Edward rocked slowly in his seat, muttering through tears, "Freedom costs more than I ever had to give." Victor's glare lingered, his cold authority fractured for the first time. You think this ends with you, Daniel? This is only the beginning. Daniel's eyes locked on him, steady and unflinching. Then let it begin. I'll walk through the fire, and what's left will not be yours. The diner's neon sputtered out completely, leaving only the dim stormlight seeping through broken glass as the silence swallowed them whole. The rain had slowed to a whisper, but the silence inside the diner was heavier than thunder. Daniel stood at the shattered window, phone still in his grip, its screen dark now, no longer humming with demands. He whispered, "It's over, but it's never over." Sarah stepped closer, her voice soft yet unwavering. "You ended the chain tonight, Daniel. That matters." Daniel's gaze drifted into the night, neon fragments flickering in broken puddles on the street. Maria's face will still haunt me. His life still hangs in shadows. Edward's voice cracked from behind, weary and hollow. We are all haunted, but some hauntings are deserved. Victor's shadow loomed near the door, his tone venomous even in defeat. You think you've won? The storm doesn't end because you willed it. It follows. Daniel's eyes hardened, his voice steady. Then let it follow me, and me alone. Daniel turned from the window, his eyes landing on Edward. He said, "You buried Maria with your compromise, but tonight I buried compromise with my choice." Edward's tears glistened, his body sagging as if his guilt had finally crushed him. "Then you are stronger than I ever was." Sarah's hand brushed Daniel's sleeve gently, her voice steady. "Strength isn't in the choice, it's in carrying it after." Victor sneered, his words sharp. "You call that strength? You'll find only ruin ahead." Daniel's jaw set firm, his voice calm but absolute. Better ruin than slavery. The storm outside sighed, the clouds breaking just enough for a thin ribbon of dawn to bleed into the diner's gloom. For the first time in years, Daniel lifted his head, his eyes catching the fragile light. The phone rang once more, sudden and sharp, breaking the fragile dawn. Everyone froze, eyes fixed on Daniel. His breath slowed, but his hand did not tremble this time. He lifted the phone, staring at the glowing number. He said, "This is the last chain." Sarah whispered, "Don't let it bind you." Edward muttered through clenched teeth, "Answer it, or the child dies." Daniel's thumb hovered. Then he pressed decline, the screen going black. Silence returned, heavier, final. He whispered, "If they kill him, his blood is on my hands. But if I submit, all of us are dead already." Victor's eyes flared with fury, his voice sharp. "You've signed his death warrant." Daniel's gaze locked on him, cold as steel. "No, I've signed yours." Victor stepped closer, his voice venomous. "You've doomed him, Daniel. You'll live knowing his last breath was stolen because of you." Daniel's chest heaved, but his voice was calm. "Better his life be free in death than chained in your world." Sarah's face twisted with grief, yet shone with pride. "You've broken them, Daniel, even if it costs everything." Edward shook his head violently, tears spilling. No, he was just a boy." Daniel turned toward Edward, his expression weary yet steady. "He was more than a boy. He was the proof that they can't control me." Victor's fury cracked into rage, but Daniel's stillness silenced even that. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle, and the dawn stretched wider, fragile but real. The diner fell silent again, the storm gone, leaving only the soft patter of rain and the fragile light of dawn. Daniel stepped toward the door, his phone falling from his hand, clattering onto the floor. He whispered, "No more chains, no more ghosts." Sarah followed him with steady eyes, her voice soft. "Then walk forward, Daniel. Whatever comes, you walk as a free man." Edward remained behind, slumped in ruin, his whispered words dissolving into tears. "I was never free." Victor's glare followed Daniel, his lips curling with venom. "This isn't the end." Daniel paused at the threshold, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes fixed on the breaking horizon. "No," he said quietly, "this is the beginning." He stepped out, the dawn swallowing him, his shadow long and unbroken.